Namaskaram. Hi, Michael. Hi, Ernesto. Today, our topic is the first maṅgalam verse of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu that we're going to analyze. So, first of all, I'm going to start reading the verse, and then we're going to go on to analyze it. It says, the translation in English, it says, if what exists were not, would existing awareness exist? Since the existing substance exists in the heart without thought, how to think of the existing substance, which is called heart? Being in the heart as it is alone is thinking. No. Okay, so that's the verse. Michael,
right. Okay, I'll give a little bit of context first. When Bhagavan first composed this verse, he actually composed only the last two lines. The last two lines are uḻḷaporuḻ, uḻḷaleva. That's a question. And then an answer, uḻḷattē, uḻḷapaḍi, uḻḷadē, uḻḷal. And then a small final word, uṇar. What that means is, the question he asked is, uḻḷaporuḻ, uḻλλaleva means who can or how to meditate on the uḻḷaporuḻ. uḻḷaporuḻ means, in Sanskrit, it would be sat vastu. That is, poruļ or vastu means the reality or the substance. Uḻḷa means the existing substance. So how to, that means what is actually real, what actually exists, how to meditate on that. Bhagavan asks a question and then he gives the answer. uḷḷattē, uḻḷapaḍi, uḻḷadē, uḻḷal. That means being in the heart as it is meditate, alone is meditating. That implies meditating on that uḻḷaporu, on that existing reality, existing substance. And then he concludes with the final word, uṇar, which means either know or be aware. So it can either imply know this, know that this is the case, or it can mean be aware of it as it is, be aware of that uḻḷaporu as it is. Know it as it is. So this is what Bhagavan initially composed. It's just a two-line verse. But later, when uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu was completed, this was the only maṅgalam verse. Kavya Kanta was told about this by some of his followers. So he asked if he could see this work that Bhagavan had just completed. He knew Tamil, he could speak Tamil, but he didn't have much knowledge of literary Tamil. So when he saw it, he saw all the verses are 4 lines, but only this maṅgalam verse is a 2-line. So he asked, why is this in a different meter? Why shouldn't they all be in the same meter? Actually, those 2 lines are in the same meter. Those 2 lines are what is called a kurul vemba, whereas the 4-line is called a vemba. It's the same meter, it's just a longer version of the same meter. So Bhagavan and Murugan consult him, then Bhagavan, okay, let to satisfy him, we'll add another 2 lines at the beginning. So Bhagavan then composed the first 2 lines. These first 2 lines are explaining the question, and to a certain extent the answer, but particularly the question. Why did Bhagavan ask who can meditate on reality? Everyone thinks I'm meditating on God, I'm meditating on Brahman. That is, generally people think, if you think about Brahman or you think about God, that is meditating on him or it. But Bhagavan, the reason Bhagavan asked this question and gives this answer is clarified by the first 2 lines. He begins the first 2 lines with a question. Of course, it's a rhetorical question. What he says in the first 2 lines is uḷḷadu, aladu, uḷḷa-uṇarvu, uḷḷadō. This can be understood in several different ways. The different ways in which it can be understood are all compatible with each other. That is, uḷḷadu means what actually exists. That's what he later refers to as uḻḷaporuḻ, that which is. And as he clarified in other places, that which is only ourselves. We alone are what actually exists. For example, in the first sentence of the 7th paragraph of Nana, he says, Yatātamai uḷḷadu, what actually exists, Atma-sarupam is only Atma-sarupa. Sarupa means real nature. It literally means own form, but it's used in the sense of the nature of a real nature. Of Atma. Atma means oneself, so our own real nature. So what actually exists is our own real nature. So what we actually are, that alone is what actually exists. So that's the first word. The next word, uḻḷadu, gives room, is a conjunction, but has more than one meaning. One meaning is, it means if not for, or it also means except as. So the basic two meanings, this uḻḷadu aladu means, it can either mean except as uḻḷadu, or it can mean if not for uḻḷadu, if uḻḷadu were not, if uḻḷadu didn't exist. So that's a conditional clause. And then he says, uḷḷa-uṇarvu, uḻḷadō. That means, does the uḻḷa-uṇarvu exist? Uḻḷa-uṇarvu means awareness. Uḻḻa means existing. So the existing awareness. It can also mean, it means existing awareness in the sense of actual awareness or real awareness. Though it doesn't directly mean satchit, that uḻḷa is an adjectival participle, so it doesn't exactly mean sat, but it implies satchit. That is, the existing awareness is satchit. That is that which actually exists. So uḻḷa-uṇarvu we can take as existing awareness, actual awareness, or awareness of what is. Well, it can mean awareness of what is. That's also an implied meaning. It's not the literal meaning, but it's an implied meaning. So if uḻḷadu were not, would uḻḻa-uṇarvu exist? Would there be such a thing as awareness? If something didn't exist, if that which exists did not exist, would there be awareness of what exists? Since we're all aware of something that exists, we're all aware of our own existence, we're aware I am, therefore we do actually exist. That is the implication. And as I say, uḻḷadu can also mean accept. So another meaning is, except as uḻḷadu, does uḻḻa-uṇarvu exist? This is the same, this is implying the same that Bhagavan says in verse 23 of Upadesha-undiyya. What Bhagavan says in verse 23 of Upadesha-undiyya, it's a very nice verse. He says, uḻḷadu Nāṛpadu uṇarvu verin. Since there is no other awareness to know what exists. When he says no other awareness, he means no awareness other than what exists. So other than what exists, there is no awareness to know it. The reason is, if something were other than what exists, it would not exist, and therefore it couldn't know anything. So since there is no other awareness to know what exists is awareness. Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. He's using the same words here, but he uses it in this maṅgalam verse. So the real awareness is only what exists. That is what the very nature of what exists is awareness. So what exists and what knows what exists are one and the same thing. In other words, they're I am. That is, I am refers both to what actually exists and to the awareness of what actually exists. That is, when we say I am, that means I exist. But in order to say I, in order to be aware of oneself as I, one has to be aware. That is, I, the first person pronoun, is the self-referential pronoun. So the first person is always that which is aware. So I refers to awareness. So when we say I am, we say I as awareness exists. That is the implication. So he concludes this verse by saying, uṇarvu nāmai uḻḷam. Awareness alone exists as we. That means what we actually are is only awareness. So we are that awareness, which is what exists. So what exists is awareness, and we are that, is the implication. So this is also implied here in this, in one of the interpretations of this first sentence. That is, except as uḷḷadu, does uḻḷa-uṇarvu exist? Does any real awareness exist except as what alone exists? So in other words, he's emphasizing that uḻḷadu is uṇarvu and uṇarvu is uḻḷadu. What exists is awareness, and awareness is what exists. Aladu can also mean, that is, that except as meaning can also implies other than. We could also take it as other than uḻḷadu, does uḻḷa-v-uṇarvu exist? That's more or less the same meaning. But the word uḻḷa, it's the verb ul means to exist. There's also another verb with a very similar root. Uḻḷal means thinking, or to think. So uḻḷa can also mean to think. So another a third meaning of this sentence is, other than uḻḷadu, is there an awareness to think? Implying that there's nothing other than uḻḷadu to meditate on it. So that meaning connects nicely with the question that he asked later. So we can take three meanings here, and all three meanings are clearly implied here. One is, but if it were not, if something didn't, if there were not what actually exists, could there be awareness of what actually exists? So the very fact that we are aware shows that we exist. Whatever else we're aware of could be just an illusion. In other words, we can't, just because we're aware of something, we cannot say that it exists. All we can say is it seems to exist. But the only thing that definitely exists is that which is aware, because what is aware, we without existing, we couldn't be aware. So the one thing that certainly exists is awareness. We are that awareness. However, though we are aware that we exist, when we rise as ego, we are aware that we are not aware what we are. So though we certainly exist, we are not necessarily what we seem to be. As ego, we seem to be a person. That is not what we actually are. So we know that we exist. We know that we are. We don't know what we are. But the fact that awareness exists and that awareness is that which refers to itself as I am, that is something we cannot reasonably doubt. We can doubt everything else, but we cannot doubt the existence of ourself as awareness. So that's one meaning. Second meaning, except as what exists, or in other words, other than what exists, can that existing awareness exist, or can that awareness of existence exist? That is, can our existence can our awareness be anything other than our existence? In other words, our existence is itself our awareness of our existence. Sat and Chit, uḻḷadu and uṇarvu, of existence and awareness are one and the same thing. What actually exists is aware. We see so many things but seem to exist but are not aware. Whatever is not aware does not actually exist. It merely seems to exist in the view of something else which is aware of its seeming existence. So that's the second meaning. Third meaning is there anything other than what exists to think of what exists? Is there any awareness other than what exists to think of what exists? No, obviously there's not. So this is a rhetorical question with implying three different but closely related ideas. So that is in this 5 words, Bhagavan has packed so much depth of meaning into this. And then he goes on in the next sentence. The next sentence is an extension of the first sentence of the original two-line verse. That is the original two-line verse was uḻḷaporuḻ, uḻḷaleva. Who can or how to meditate on the existing substance? He expands on this by saying, uḻḷaporuḻ, the existing substance, the sat vastu, uḻḷalaṛa, uḻḷattē, uḻḷadāl. Since that existing substance, the existing substance is what he referred to in the first sentence as uḻḷadu, that which actually exists. So since that which actually exists in the heart, uḻḷalāṛa, without thinking, it literally means, that means it's without thought, it's beyond thought. So since it exists in the heart beyond thought, who can or how to think of that which actually exists, which is called heart? Yuḻḻameṉu means which is called heart. So that which actually exists, the existing substance is what is called heart. And it exists in the heart as it is. In the heart here means within ourselves, in ourselves, and it is ourselves. So it can be described as both existing within the heart and also existing as the heart. It is the heart. There's one other meaning here. Uḻḷam is a noun. That is, here Bhagavan is playing, throughout this verse, Bhagavan is playing on this, a root word, uḻ. Uḻ means to be, or it also means inside. And as uḻḷa, it's also, as uḻḷu, it also means to think, but that's actually a different word. But uḻ in the sense of what is inside and uḻ in the sense of what exists are very closely related. What actually exists is only what is inside, not what is outside, is the implication. So Tamil is actually a naturally philosophical language. There's a lot of philosophy implied in the language itself. In the very words themselves have philosophical connotation. So uḻḷam, uḻ means, in this case, it means what's inside. So what is inside is the heart. So heart means the innermost part of ourself, the core of ourself. So that what actually exists is the very core of ourself. Now when we rise as ego, we are aware of ourselves as I am this person. I am Ernesto, I am Carlos, I am Michael, or I am whoever. In that mixed awareness, that adjunct conflated awareness is ego. But within the ego, there is an element of reality. That is I am. So that I am is the heart. The heart of ego is I am. The person we take ourselves to be, the body we take ourselves to be, is merely an outer shell. What's in the heart of ourselves, what's in the center of ourselves, what we essentially are, is just I am. So I am is the heart. So that's one reason why Bhagavan often refers to the heart. He's referring to what is innermost in us. But uḻḷam also can mean, when we talk of inside and outside, these are relative terms. So in other contexts, uḻḷam, which means what's inside, can also mean the mind. So we need to understand from a context in the sense in which the words, I mean, it's the same in any language. Words, the precise meaning of a word is determined by the context in which it's used. So in some contexts, when Bhagavan uses this word uḻḷam, which means the heart, in some cases he's referring to the mind or to the will. And in some cases, he's referring to what we actually are. So we need to understand from a context in what sense he's using it. Here he's using it in the sense of what we actually are. That is that which actually exists. That is the center of ourselves, the heart, core of ourselves, what we essentially are. But uḻḷam also has another meaning. That is, as I say, the verb uḻ means to exist. The second person plural form of uḻ is ullom. Ullom means we are. But in literary Tamil, in poetic Tamil, another form of ullom is uḻḷam. So uḻḻam also means we are. Bhagavan often uses this, the word, the second person plural pronoun we. In fact, in Tamil, there are two second-person pronouns. There's nangal and nam. Nangal means we in the sense of excluding the person you're speaking to. So if you're talking about a group of people other than the person you're talking to, you say nangal. Whereas if you're talking, if we is intended to include the person you're speaking to, you say nam. So nam is the inclusive first person plural pronoun. So Bhagavan often uses this pronoun nam to refer to ourselves generally. The reason he does so, though what we actually are is only one, why does Bhagavan use this plural form to refer to ourselves? In some cases, when he says nam, he's referring to what we actually are. In some cases, he's referring to ego. For example, in the first verse of the main text of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he begins, Nāmulhum Kandalal, because we see the world. But we who see the world is not what we actually are, it's only ego. So in some cases he uses nam to refer to, we to refer to ego. In some cases he uses it to refer to what we actually are. But the reason he used we rather than I, if he says I, he is excluding us. He's referring only to himself. If he says you, it's like he's excluding himself. He's referring to, like sometimes Bhagavan says, like, see the very first clause of the first verse of the main text. He says, because we see the world. Does Bhagavan see the world? No, obviously he doesn't. Bhagavan is just pure jnana swarupa. So in his view, there's nothing other than jnana. But he comes down to our level and says, because we see the world. In that context, if he had said, because you see the world, it's as if he's talking down of us. Oh, you foolish people, you see the world, so all this problem. So he comes down to our level and says, because we see the world. So he uses we in an inclusive sense, not to exclude us. If he had said I, he would be excluding us. If he had said you, he would be excluding himself. So to include us all, he says nam. So when Bhagavan, though Bhagavan refers to ourselves, what we actually are, he often refers to it as nam, and he also refers to ego as nam. His teaching is, but there is only one ego. And of course, there's only one reality. So he's not, though he uses we, he's not, it's a plural in form, but not plural in sense. It's used as an inclusive form of the first person singular pronoun, I. So here, when he uses this word uḻḷam, which, as I say, it means heart and also means we are, we are here is an inclusive way of saying I am. So the implication here is that the existing substance, which is called heart, is also called I am. It has a beautiful double meaning. So in this way, that is in this verse, Bhagavan is packing so much very deep meaning. And if you hear the verse, it's uḷḷadu, uḷḷa-v-uṇarvu, uḻḷadō, uḻḷaporuḻ, uḻḷalaṟa, uḻllattē, yuḻḷadāl, uḻḷameṉu, uḻllaporuḻ, uḻḷaleva, uḻllaporuḻ, uḻḷaleva, uḻllattē, uḻḷapaḍi, uḻḷadē, uḻḷa-v-uṇar. That is, the vast majority of words in this verse are beginning with this syllable ul, generally referring to what exists, also meaning being. So I mean, he's playing on this one root of a word. He implies so much meaning, and those some of the words, like, well, for example, the first clause, aladu, can be interpreted in several ways. Uḻḷa in uḻḷa-uṇarvu can be interpreted in two ways. It can mean the existing substance, or the existing awareness, or the awareness to think. It has two meanings. And aladu can mean, if not for, or if not, it can mean except as, it can mean other than. So, but so that sentence, as I explained earlier, it has basically three different meanings. This uḻḷam, what is called uḻḷam, has two meanings. It can mean heart, or it can mean I am. So he deliberately uses words but have a double meaning, or in order to in a few words say more than those. I mean, he's using words to the maximum effect to convey the maximum meaning. So this second sentence is, since the existing substance exists in the heart without thinking, literally it means, or devoid of thought, or implying that it's beyond thought, uḻḻameṉu, uḻḻaporuḻ, uḻḷaleva. Who can think of that existing substance which is called heart, or which is called I am? We cannot think of that which is beyond thought. So how can we think of it? The only way to think of it is the answer he gives. Uḻḷattē, uḻļapaḍi, uḻḷadē, uḻḷal. Uḻḷattē means in the heart. Uḻļapaḍi means as it is. Uḻḷadē is, uḻḷadu means it means both what exists, and it also means being. So uḻḷadu means, in here he's using it as a verb, meaning being, that as a verbal noun. It's technically it's a participial noun. But he's using it here as a verbal noun, meaning being. Uḻḷadē, that a means this alone, and uḻḷal means thinking. So being in the heart, as it is, alone is thinking, is what it means. Why does he bring in thinking here? Because the question is how to think of that, how to meditate on that. So here thinking, that uḻḷal, implies meditating on the existing substance. So here Bhagavan is telling us, often a term is used, Brahma Dhyanam, meditating on Brahman. Bhagavan here says, how can you meditate on Brahman? Brahman is what exists in the heart, devoid of thought. It exists in the heart as I am, as the heart itself, and it's devoid of thought. So how can we think of that which is devoid of thought? We can think of objects. How can we think of that which is the reality of the subject? We can think about it, but we can never grasp it in thought. That is, whatever we think about Brahman or think about our real nature is not what we actually are. What we actually are is beyond thought. So how can we meditate on it? We can meditate on it only by being it. So it's just, the true meditation on Brahman is just to be Brahman. And what is Brahman? Brahman is that which exists in the heart, devoid of thought, as the pure awareness I am. So there's so much, this verse is so packed full of deep meaning.
Yeah, it's Yeah, and I think the understanding the Satchit, what implies Satchit is very important. Yeah, Michael, because can I share with you a small text that I wrote based on this, just to see if my understanding is clear about the verse and the implication, basically. So existence devoid of awareness of itself, that would turn anything into an object of perception that would be seemingly real, and it would rise and cease in our experience if things were simply existed but without awareness of being existent. So that Satchit is what God must actually be, because it needs no other agent or second awareness, second consciousness, second consciousness to be known.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael. So since nothing else can know God as something other than God, it never rises or ceases.
Yes.
Because it is the only thing that is knowing itself at all times.
Yes.
For example, ego. Ego seemingly exists, is aware of itself, but is not aware of itself at all times, like God.
Yes.
Like the...
Yeah, that is, ego borrows its existence and its awareness of its existence from Satchit.
Mm-hmm.
Because ego has that element of reality in it. I am, that is Satchit. So ego has that element of reality in it, but that I am doesn't belong to ego. Ego has usurped that I am. It lays claim to that. On one hand, it misappropriates misappropriates I am as if it's its own, and it misappropriates the body as if it's its own. Mm-hmm. So it takes the two together. So ego is neither I am, nor is it the body. It's some spurious entity, but rises between the two.
Exactly. And it's not Satchit, obviously. It's not Satyam in the sense...
As Bhagavan says in verse 24 of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, Jada uḍl the body, in sentient body, does not say I. When he says does not say I, that's a metaphorical way of saying it's not aware of itself as I. Why is it not aware of itself as I? Because it's Jada, it's not aware. So, and here when Bhagavan uses the term body, he's not referring just to the physical body, he's referring to all the five sheaths. Because as he says in verse 5, uḍl panchakosa uḍl, the body is a form of five sheaths. We never take a dead body to be ourselves. It's always a living body. And we never experience a sleeping body as ourselves. It's always a waking body. Because it's a living body, it is combined with prana. And because it's a body that seems to be awake, it is combined with mind, intellect, and will. So these five collectively are what Bhagavan refers to as body. That these are all jada. They're all non-aware. That is, they're all objects perceived by us. This body is an object perceived by us. The prana, the life processes, physiological processes, breathing, heartbeat, digestion, circulation of blood, and all these physiological processes, they're all objects perceived by us. The mind, in the sense of manamaya kosha, the mind sheath, means the grosser functions of the mind. That's the perceptions, memories, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and so on. These are all objects perceived by us. They're not aware of themselves. We are aware of them. Likewise, the intellect, we are aware of the workings of the intellect, the functioning of the intellect. The intellect is not aware of its own functioning. Likewise with the will consists essentially just of vasanas and of the likes and dislikes, that the vasanas sprout as likes and dislikes, but essentially what the will is the vasanas. The vasanas are not aware of themselves. The likes and dislikes and the desires and attachments are not aware of themselves. A desire doesn't desire anything. I desire it. So it is that ego who takes itself, who identifies itself with the desires, with the workings of the intellect, with the workings of the mind, with the workings of prana, and with the workings of the body. I am sitting, I am breathing, I am thinking, I am discerning, I am liking this, I'm disliking that. It's all that is ego, but takes all these five as itself. But these five are jada. They're not aware of themselves. That's why Bhagavan says in verse 24, jada uḍal nāṛpadu, in sentient body, is not aware of itself as, it does not say I. That means it is not aware of itself as I. Satchit uḷḷadu. Satchit does not rise. So on the one hand, we've got a body which is not aware of itself as I. On the other hand, we've got satchit, which doesn't rise. So these are two different things. Between these two, one thing, I, rises as the extent of a body. This one thing, I, is ego. That is, this one thing called I is ego. Because it rises, it is not satchit. Because it's aware of itself as I, it is not the body. Because the body is not aware of itself as I, satchit doesn't rise. So this ego is neither the body, nor is it satchit. But it rises between the two. Rises between the two means it usurps the qualities of both. Like satchit, ego is aware of itself as I am.
It's an hologram, no, Michael?
Sorry?
The phantom ego,
yes,
is like an hologram. It's not part of the consciousness that separate and mix with the body. No, it's the same qualities that consciousness, the phantom ego, fabricate in the illusion, in the Maya. No,
yeah,
the mix of the qualities of the consciousness, of awareness. And the body, the five sheets, no, fabricated.
Yes,
because some people, I listen in different videos or similar, that too many people say that part of the consciousness, part of what we really are, forget of itself or separate and mix with the body. No, it's not. It's indivisible. No, well, we are.
That is what we actually are always remains as it is. That's why Bhagavan says, Satchit uḷḷadu. When he says it doesn't rise, it doesn't, it implies it doesn't undergo any change. Because if something undergoes change, one time, okay, this body, we know this body undergoes change. At one time, this body was a small baby. Then it grew into a little boy, and then it grew a bigger teenager. Then it was in its 20s. Now it's an old body in its 60s. The body has changed. This body is no longer a baby. At one time it was a baby. Now it's not a baby. So what it was at one time is no longer that now. So undergoing change means ceasing to be what we are, what we were, and becoming something else. So whatever change is a subsidence of what we were previously. That is, that this body is no longer a baby body. That baby body has ceased to exist. That baby body was not a 60-year-old body. So it's the same body, but it's undergone change. So what it was then is different to what it was now. So the baby has subsided. This 60-year-old man has arisen. So any change is it's a subsidence and an arising, and a subsidence of one thing and a rising of something else. So when Bhagavan says Satchit does not rise, I think Bhagavan uses very simple words, but if we think about the implication of the words, it has far more meaning than it appears on the surface. So what does not rise does not undergo change at all. Because change is a process of rising and subsiding. What was there previously subsides, and what the new thing that it becomes arises. So Satchit never undergoes any change at all. Satchit is immutable. It remains ever as it is. What rises is ego. What is real awareness is only Sat-Chit. But ego borrows from Sat-Chit its awareness. But ego is not a real awareness, because real awareness is pure awareness. Pure awareness means awareness that is not aware of anything other than itself. As ego, we are aware of so many other things. So real awareness is only pure awareness, awareness that is aware of nothing other than itself, because nothing other than itself actually exists. To be aware of anything else, anything other than pure awareness doesn't exist. So being aware of something other than pure awareness is not real awareness. If you know something that doesn't exist, that's not real awareness. That's only a semblance of awareness. That is why ego is often referred to, often described as Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa, abhasa means a likeness or a semblance. Often it's translated as a reflection of awareness, and often it's explained as a reflection of awareness. Because if you look in a mirror and you see a reflection of yourself, you're not actually seeing yourself in the mirror. What you're seeing is only a likeness of yourself. So in that sense, the word abhasa, which means a likeness or a semblance, comes to mean also a reflection. So ego is not real awareness. It's only a semblance of awareness. So there are only two things that are aware. Sat-Chit is the real awareness. Ego is the semblance of awareness. It's not actually anything other than Sat-Chit, but nothing other than Sat-Chit and ego is aware. And even ego is nothing other than Sat-Chit. So there is actually only one awareness. This ego is a mere semblance of awareness. It's a reflection or a likeness of awareness, but it's not the real awareness.
It's, for example, if we saw, we see the reflection of the sun in the mirror.
Yes.
This row that go from the mirror to the wall, no, in the house.
Yes.
You never say this is the light of the sun.
No.
You know that is a reflection of the sun.
Exactly.
The real light is the light who inside in the mirror. No?
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Michael,
but that light, that reflected light, is nothing other than the sunlight. Where is that light? You shine the mirror into a dark cave or into a dark house and put light there. Where is that light coming from? It's coming only from the sun. So that light is not other than the sunlight, but it's not the sunlight in its pure condition. Likewise, this awareness that we call ego is nothing other than that one real awareness, but it's not that real awareness as it actually is, because as it actually is, it is just being, not knowing anything. It is knowing nothing other than itself.
Its source is real and its manifestation is unreal.
Exactly.
And then
the link between the manifestation and the source is ego.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Bhagavan says in that verse 24 of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, in between one thing rises. So in the view of pure awareness, there is no manifestation, no world at all. Mm-hmm. Only in the view of this intermediary is that the world appear. So the world doesn't exist at all except in the view of ego. So ego borrows its reality, its existence and its awareness from Sat-Chit. And it lends reality to the world. The world seems to exist only because it seems to exist in the view of ego. And ego seems to exist because of that one element of reality in it, I am. So what is real is only I am. That is why the very simple practice that Bhagavan has taught us is to attend only to I am, because what is real is only I am. Uḷḷadu is only I am. What actually exists is only I am. So that alone, that is the true meditation, is to meditate only on I. But meditating on I is not one thing meditating on another thing. We can meditate on I only by being I. Only by being as we are can we truly attend to ourselves. So to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, our attention is withdrawn from other things, so ego subsides and remains as it is. That's why Bhagavan emphasizes in this verse, being in the heart as it is alone is truly meditating on it. So we can be, how to be self-attentive? Just be yourself. What are you? You are just awareness. Just remain as that pure awareness that is aware of nothing other than its own existence. That is being as we are. That is self-attentiveness.
So that, Michael, makes me think this verse of that it's actually this awareness of our own existence is what makes God actually, and at all times. Not we can prove that throughout waking, dream, and sleep. Not like ego that it's in the waking state and dream, but the fact that it's aware of its own existence without the need to be without any other second consciousness or something else makes it eternal in a sense, because it doesn't depend on anything else to exist.
Yes. In Christian theology and in philosophy and metaphysics, one of the fundamental questions is, does God exist or not? So the theologians are always trying to look for proof, how to prove the existence of God. That is, they start with a certain idea of God and they want to prove that God exists. That issue does not at all arise in Advaita, because in Advaita, God is existence itself. So to ask, how can you prove that existence exists? Existence is Swayam Prakasha, is self-evident. I am is self-evident. So you don't need any philosophical or theological argument to prove the existence of I. We all clearly know I am. And God is not something that, God is not merely an existing thing. God is existence itself. So that existence that shines in us as our own existence, I am, that is God. God cannot be anything other than I am. That is why Bhagavan often pointed out what is said in Exodus in the Old Testament, when Moses asked God, who shall I say has sent me who shall I say to the Israelite that God, who shall I say has sent me to lead you out of Israel? God says, I am that I am. Say that I am has sent you. So God is nothing other than our own existence. You don't need any theological or philosophical arguments to know you exist. We all know we exist. If God was something other than I am, then we could very reasonably doubt his existence. But since God is nothing other than I am, since God cannot be anything other than I am, because if God was something other than I am means its existence itself. So God cannot be anything other than existence. So God is nothing but existence. God is pure existence. So debating about whether God exists or not is a meaningless debate. So that's why there's no need to try and establish that God exists. Does existence exist? Yes, obviously it does, because we're all aware of something existing. Everything other than ourselves that exists is doubtful. Does it actually exist, or does it merely seem to exist? We can ask that of everything, including God, if God is something other than ourselves. Does God actually exist, or does he seem to exist? But the one thing whose existence we cannot doubt is our own ourself. We cannot doubt the existence of ourself, because we couldn't be aware of our existence if we didn't exist. That's why Bhagavan says, if it were not for what exists, could there be awareness of what exists? In the first sentence of this verse. So Bhagavan is here pointing out, indirectly, he's pointing out the futility of all arguments about whether God exists or not. Forget about God. Do you exist? Yes, yes, I am. We are aware of our own existence. Your own existence, that is what is God. God is nothing other than pure existence. So God is your own, is what we actually are.
Because I think that the people reduce the real significance of existence, because associate the existence with the body. And,
Yes.
and from this point, they need to look for God as if God is other thing,
Yes.
Because the existence that they conceive is the existence of the body of 5 Gs.
This is the fundamental mistake we make. We mistake existence for things that exist.
Yes.
But what we actually are is not anything. We are just pure existence itself. I am is not a thing.
Yeah.
Or with the existence of prana, or with the existence of prana, no? Because this existence is the existence of the body. Is not the existence of what we really are.
There is only one existence. Everything that is perceived by us, every object, every phenomenon seems to exist in the view of ego. And ego seems to exist because it's borrowed its existence and its awareness of its existence from Sat-Chit. We seem to be ego only when we're looking outwards. If we look within to see who am I, it's because ego cannot exist without holding things other than itself. When we try to hold on to ourself alone, we thereby let go of other things. Ego subsides, and we find what we actually are is that mere being. We are not this rising ego. We are just that being awareness, that Sat-Chit. That is what alone actually exists. So Sat-Chit is not a thing that exists. Sat-Chit is pure existence itself. Yeah. That is what we actually are.
Mm-hmm. And
that is what God actually is. So God doesn't exist. God is pure existence itself.
And all the adjectives to describe this nature of God, or the attributes to God, like indivisible or infinite love or eternal, etc. That comes because because it knows itself only as itself, it loves itself, or because it only knows itself. It's only one. It's the only thing there is. All descriptions about it stem from this.
Yes. But that is, we can view this in two ways. So long as we rise as ego, we are aware of ourselves as limited. We have limited existence. We were born at one day, we're going to die one day. So our existence is limited. Our knowledge is limited. We know some things, we don't know other things. Our happiness is limited. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're not so happy. Our power is limited. We have very limited power. So because we are aware of our own limitations, we imagine God to be that which is devoid of all these limitations. So God is ever existing. He's eternal. He is omnipresent. He exists everywhere. He is all-knowing. He knows everything. He's infinite happiness. He's infinite love. He's infinite power, because there's no power other than God. So we because we're aware of ourselves having adjuncts, we attribute so many adjuncts to God: all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present, all that is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, omnibenevolent.
A compensation of our limited, no?
Yes.
Of ourselves.
But in what sense are all these attributes that we attribute to God, in what sense are they true? Yes, God is omnipresent. Why? Because he alone exists. Nothing other than God exists. So there's no place other than him where he doesn't exist. So he's omnipresent. There's no place or time where he doesn't exist. So he's omnipresent. He is omniscient. Why is he omniscient? Because he knows what alone actually exists. What exists? I am alone. God knows nothing other than I am. So he knows everything that there is to know. He's all powerful because there's nothing other than him. He's infinite happiness because there's nothing other than him that could ever detract from his happiness. He's infinite love because he loves himself. He doesn't see anything as other than himself, so he loves everything as himself. So all these adjuncts, all these attributes that we attribute to God, they are true in a sense, but in a much deeper sense than the sense that our mind can conceive.
Yeah.
So how to know God? To know God, we have to meditate on God. How to meditate on God? You have to be God. Uḻḷattē, uḻḷapaḍi, uḻḷadē, uḷḷal. In order to meditate on God and thereby to know God, another meaning of uḻḷal is also investigating. It not only means thinking, it also means investigating. So how to investigate who am I? Being as you are is investigating. I forgot to mention that meaning also. So how to know God? To know God, we need to investigate or meditate on him. And how to meditate on him? Just by being him. We cannot know God. If you try to know God in any way other than being God, you're taking God to be an object. God cannot be an object. God is the reality of the subject. So taking God to be something other than ourselves and trying to meditate on him is ignorance. The best way to meditate on God is only to be as we are, because what we are is nothing other than God. Because if God is infinite, all religions say God is infinite. If God is infinite, how can anything be other than God? So he alone is what actually exists. So if we remain as we actually are, that is remaining as God, being God. So we can know God only by being God, by being as it is, as Bhagavan says, uḷḷapaḍi, uḻḷadē. Only being as we actually are, that is being God, and that is knowing God.
I have one question, Michael, from maṅgalam, the second verse. I don't know if it's okay to
yes,
speak about
certainly.
It. When you say, when Bhagavan says, no, can a pure heart, this is the question, can a pure-hearted person be afraid of death if pure-hearted people no longer have such a belief? How would you describe a pure-hearted person?
A pure-hearted person is not a person at all. The root impurity is thinking I am a person. So when we are really pure of heart, a truly pure heart, a perfectly pure heart is an egoless heart. That which is aware of itself as I am a person is only ego. So the true purity is only that state in which we do not rise as ego.
And so heart is the synonym for mind, pure mind? Or
yeah, yes, but I mean, the perfectly pure mind, what is, that is the impurities in the mind of a vasana, the Vishaya vasanas. What is the root of all those impurities? It is ego. So the root impurity is ego. So the parisuddha uḻḷam, the perfectly pure heart is, or mind, is only the egoless mind. The egoless mind is not a mind at all. It is that which actually exists. It is Brahman or Atma Swarupa or whatever you choose to call it. It is what we actually are.
I have a couple of questions regarding the maṅgalam verse 1 again.
Yes, please.
Going back to, because in Spanish, I don't know if you're aware of that the verb to be is split into two different verbs.
Yes.
There is one goes to express location of things, people, etc., and abstract nouns too, not only physical things.
Yes.
And the verb ser, which is more about existing or being the to identify things or essential features of things and so on.
Yes.
So in that sense, when it says being in the heart, it has the sense of being in the sense of remaining, abiding in the heart, as if, because that would, in Spanish, that would be that meaning, that
yes.
one meaning or the other, if it's mainly merely existing in the heart, or
yes,
just being in the sense of existing.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think my understanding of the difference between the two verbs in Spanish is one means what you actually are. The other is referring to the state you're in.
Yes.
So broadly speaking,
exactly. Like I am. If you say I am sick,
mm-hmm.
Sick is not what you essentially are. Sick is you. It is a temporary condition. You're unwell. So anything that is temporary is estar, but what you actually are is ser. Am I correct? Is that a correct understanding?
There are many exceptions to that rule. That is the main rule, but there are many exceptions.
Yes. So in that sense, what Bhagavan is talking about here, yes, it is ser. It is being as we are. But that uḻḷapaḍi, as we are, that is describing what is the state of ourselves. We are not. When we rise as ego is not what we are. It is a state. We become ego temporarily. In waking and dream, we're ego. In sleep, we are not ego. So ego is just a temporary condition, like an illness or something that comes and goes. But what he says there is we need to be as we actually are. So the state we need to be in is the state of our own being, our own pure being.
Yeah, that's right. Then it would be ser, to be.
Yes.
The other verb, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it would be like being instead of staying in the heart, or like in that sense.
Yeah.
The translation. Yeah.
Yes.
One more thing, Michael. The imperative at the end.
Yes.
No. You said that it can be interpreted as know that this is the case, or know or be aware of it as it is.
Yes.
But
it means ourselves, what we actually are, because uḻḷaporuḻ is nothing other than ourselves.
Yeah, because the first time I read it, it was like, okay, I think he's saying, no, this is true, or no, this is the case. Or...
That is the more obvious meaning, because often Bhagavan's verses, and I think often in Tamil verses, they end with the word saying that ari or una, it means know this. But so the surface meaning is no, but this is the case. We can but we can also read a deeper meaning into that. Know what that is, how to know what actually exists. We can know it only by being it. So when he says uṇar, he implies know this and by being this. And in fact, Bhagavan translated, this is the only verse of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu Bhagavan translated into Sanskrit. That is, there's quite a long story, but I won't go into the details of the story. But at one time, Kaviraganta was talking about the greatness of Sanskrit poetry, saying there's such wonderful meters in Sanskrit poetry. There's no poetry in any other language to compare with Sanskrit. Bhagavan was listening patiently. Then Bhagavan said, in Tamil, we've got a very simple meter called Vemba. This is the to be qualified as a poet in Tamil, you have to be able to compose Vemba. If you can't compose Vemba, you're not a proper poet. It's a sort of basic verse of Tamil. So Bhagavan asked, do you have any such verse in Sanskrit? Actually, though it's considered as you're a Tamil poet only if you can compose Vemba. Vemba is actually, unless you are familiar with it, it's very difficult verse because the rules are very complex rules are there for composing Vemba. So Bhagavan asked, do you have any such verse in Sanskrit? And Kaviraganta said, no, we don't. He first pointed out some verse, and Bhagavan said, no, this isn't correct. Then Bhagavan said, okay, so there's no such thing as a Vemba in Sanskrit. Can you compose a Vemba in Sanskrit? And Kaviraganta then struggled, and however much he tried, he couldn't manage. And then Bhagavan said, okay, if you can't do it in Sanskrit, in your own mother tongue, can you compose in Telugu? And he couldn't do. Bhagavan did all this just to put down his ego because he was so proud. He's a great Sanskrit poet, and of all the poetry in the world, the greatest poetry is Sanskrit. So to put down that ego, Bhagavan asked him to compose with Vemba, and he couldn't do so. So Bhagavan often used to tell this story, and it was later in the context, once when he was telling this story, but Suri Nagama asked Bhagavan to compose Vemba in Telugu. And at first Bhagavan declined him, and he did so. And that Bhagavan composed in Telugu and the same time in Tamil, and that became Ekatma Panchakam. But anyway, that was towards the end of Bhagavan's bodily life. But in the late 1920s, soon after Bhagavan had composed uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, Lakshman Sharma came to Bhagavan. And seeing that Lakshman Sharma was much interested in his teaching, Bhagavan asked, have you read uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu? And Lakshman Sharma said, no, Bhagavan, I'm not able to, because I'm a Sanskrit. That is, Lakshman Sharma is a Tamilian. But because at school he had studied Sanskrit rather than Tamil, he found it difficult to understand Tamil verses. So he said, Bhagavan, I'm a Sanskrit student, so I'm not able to understand uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. But then he thought to himself, oh, this is a very good opportunity. Bhagavan has asked me if I've read it. So let me, so he said, but Bhagavan, if you would be kind enough, gracious enough to teach me the meaning, I'd like to study it. So Bhagavan started to explain the meaning of uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu verse by verse. And because Lakshman Sharma had so much love for Sanskrit, he wanted to try and express it in Sanskrit verses. So because Bhagavan had told this story, Lakshman Sharma asked Bhagavan, oh, Bhagavan, why don't you compose uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu in Sanskrit in Vemba meter? And Bhagavan said, no, it's not. Bhagavan said, you know Sanskrit much better than I do, so you try. And Lakshman Sharma, he struggled. He wasn't able to compose a Sanskrit Vemba. Then he seeing him struggling, then Bhagavan wrote this same Tamil Vemba. Bhagavan wrote the same thing in Sanskrit. So that is the only Vemba in Sanskrit language. And unfortunately, Bhagavan wrote very few verses in Sanskrit. He wrote the 30 verses of, the earliest work he wrote in Sanskrit, I think, was complete work, was Arunacha Pancharatnam. He wrote first in Sanskrit and then in Tamil. He also translated all of Upadesha Undiyā into Sanskrit as Upadesha Saram. So that's 35 verses. And there are three other verses, which are generally called Muktaka Traya. Muktaka Trayam means, some people say 3 verses on liberation. That is not what it means. Muktaka there means separate. Because mukti, when you're liberated, you're separated from bondage. So muktaka there means separate. It means 3 separate verses. Those 3 separate verses are Hridaya Guha Madhye, and which is verse 10, he translated in Tamil as verse 10 of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. Deham Rinmaya, but he translated in Tamil as verse 8 of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, and one other verse, Ekamaksharam. So generally people believe Bhagavan composed only these 38 verses in Tamil, but in Sanskrit, but actually he composed one more, which is his Sanskrit translation of this first verse, which Sadhuam pointed out to me. It was in one of Murugan's notebooks, the same notebook in which Bhagavan had written, in which there were many of the early drafts of the verses of uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu. We used to call that Murugan's black notebook. That was virtually the original manuscript of uڵḷadu Nāṛpadu. In that same manuscript, in that same book, Bhagavan had written this Sanskrit Bemba. Or Murugan had copies. I can't remember whether it was in Bhagavan's handwriting or Murugan's handwriting. But anyway, this Sanskrit Bemba was there. This is Bhagavan's own translation. Why I bring that in here, Bhagavan ended that verb with the verb syat. Syat means may you be. So having said that, that is what he says in the Sanskrit verse, sadvina sadvastu astu kimu satyam. Let me have a look. Got a translation of it here. Sadvina sadnyanam asti kimu. That means it's almost exact translation of the Tamil. Sadvina means without sat. Sadnyanam, sadnyana. That means satchit, or awareness of what is. Asti kimu. Kimu is just makes it into a question. Asti means is there. So is there satnyana without sat? Can there be knowledge of existence without existence? And then he says satyam, that reality, that existing reality, vritti rahitam, beyond thoughts or without thoughts, shridi in the heart, vibhati, shines within the heart. Since that one reality shines within the heart, ataha, since it shines within the heart, tat tridayam, that the heart, he's referring to that existing reality is the heart itself, tat tridayam, jayati katam. Who can meditate? Who can do dhyana on that existing reality, which is the heart, since it exists in the heart beyond thought? So who can meditate on it? Jayati katam, Hridi tadatma bhava stiti dhyanam satvastunaha. That means Hridi means in the heart. Tadatma bhava means as it is. Stiti means being established or firmly standing or being as it is. Dhyanam satvastunaha. That is meditation on the satvastu. And then he ends with the word syat. Syat means may you be. So the word, but in Tamil he said no. In Sanskrit he said be. Why? Because being and knowing are one and the same thing.
So actually, yeah, it's that second case, as you mentioned before, that deeper meaning.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, here we can't take syat to mean no, but this is the case. Here it very clearly means may you be, implying may you be as you actually are, may you be tadatma bhava.
So, for example,
as it is.
In Spanish, again, we have 2 verbs. For the verb to know, again, we have 2 different verbs. So if you are familiar with something, with a thing, you are more direct knowledge of that. It's one verb. If it's another verb, it's to know some information. So
right.
You would be a choice there.
Yes.
It's good to know that translation because that
Conocer y saber.
exactly.
Right.
That denotes that the second meaning is preferable. Yeah?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And this verb uṇar, it means both to know and to be aware. That is almost any another verb in Tamil is ari. Ari means, in most cases, it means to know, but it also means to be aware. So arivu or uṇarvu means both knowledge and awareness.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you have more questions about this verse, something that you want to, Ernesto?
I have one question. I don't know if it's inside the second, the three, or where, or maybe transcend it. No, it is possible, Michael, to transcend our perception of separation by going inward, without first surrendering the different and varied ways in which we do not separate from others in our relationships? Because we see too many people, no, that try, I'm going to attend myself, no? And I'm going to try and attend myself. But in her current lives, very usually, they separate for the others, no? In vase of this very supreme indication that go inside, but in his lives, trying, now I don't want to stay with this person because this person don't think like me, or I don't want to stay with these people because these people, no? Do you think that is in parallel, or how what's your impression?
Okay. I will answer this, but in an indirect way. That is, in order to go deep within and thereby separate ourselves from everything other than ourselves as we actually are, we need great purity of mind and heart. To the extent to which we have purity of mind and heart, when we look outwards, we won't see difference between ourselves and others. We will, even in the bad people, we will feel sympathy even for the bad people. Because however bad someone is, as Bhagavan says in the 19th paragraph of Nana, there are not two minds, a good mind and a bad mind. Mind is only one. It is the vasanas that are good or bad. When the mind is under the sway of bad vasanas, we call it a bad mind. When it's under the sway of good vasanas, we call it a good mind. So when we see a person doing evil things, we have to feel sorry for them. They are so immersed in ignorance, immersed in darkness, immersed in selfishness, makes them do such things. They're so wrapped up in themselves. We really have to feel sorry for such people, because it's like someone being put in a dark dungeon and not able to see the light of day. It's only because of ignorance that we do bad actions. Any bad action we do it out of ignorance. If we were really aware of what actually is, of what is real, we wouldn't be able to do any bad action. So the more we gain purity by going within, the more we will. It doesn't mean that we'll go out and we'll embrace all the bad people, but we will at least feel sympathy for them in our heart. As Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, God exists in all, but don't for that reason go embracing tigers. So when we can see, when we look outwards, we can see some people are good, some people are bad. We can see the difference between good and bad. It's not that we lack discrimination, but we see beneath what is good and bad, because what is good and bad is only the behavior. And the behavior it's because we're under the sway of vasanas, but we behave in a particular way. If we're under the sway of relatively good vasanas, we'll behave in a relatively good way. If we're under the sway of relatively bad vasanas, we'll behave in a relatively bad way. So but the purer our heart, the more we will see beyond the bad behavior of other people and feel compassion for them as a jiva. That is to be. If we behave badly, it is because we are under the sway of bad vasanas, and those bad vasanas, fire first burns the place it begins from. So if you have tendency to be, if you have inclination to be selfish, to be cruel, to be unkind, to be self-centered, to be angry, you yourself are suffering. Before you make anyone else suffer, you yourself are suffering. Those who make others suffer, they make others suffer because they themselves are suffering with their own vasanas. So we will feel compassion even for the evil people. So, as I say, that doesn't mean we have to go and associate with the evil people. We don't have to become friends with the evil people. That may not be possible because their way of viewing the world is so different to our way. But at least we don't have hatred for them. We feel, however bad their actions may be, we feel compassion for them. If they are caught doing bad things and they are punished, yes, they need that punishment. We will understand that, but still we will feel compassion for them. So that is, if we have a pure heart, that is how we will view things. In order to go deep in this practice, we need a pure heart. But we shouldn't let that deter us making a start on this path. If any of us are honest with ourselves, is there anyone who can put up their hand and say they have a pure heart? No, none of us. If we're honest, we won't say so. If we put up I've got a very pure heart, that's a big ego. That's a very impure heart. So if we're realistic about ourselves, this petty ego is full of has so many impurities. We've got so many bad vasanas, and we got so much liking. Why are we swayed by good vasanas or bad vasanas or by any vasanas at all? We're swayed by them because we want to be swayed by them because they're our vasanas, our likings. So if we're honest with ourselves, why our mind is going outwards? Because we still have a liking to go outwards. So we are far from perfect. We are far from perfectly pure. Does that mean that we are unqualified for this practice of self-investigation? No. Anyone who is aware I am is qualified to investigate this I am. Many people may not be attracted to, they may not be drawn to this path. That in the majority of people, if you tell about this Bhagavan's teachings, it will not interest them at all. They just won't, it won't appeal to them. The very fact that Bhagavan's teachings appeal to us and that we want to at least try to follow his path means that we are qualified to start. So however imperfect our mind may be, however impure our mind may be, let us begin following this path, because what is the most effective way to purify the mind? It is only by being self-attentive, because to the extent to which we are self-attentive, we are thereby not allowing ourselves to be swayed by our Vishaya vasanas, and thereby our Vishaya vasanas are being weakened. So there is no means to purify the mind that is as effective as being self-attentive. This is why Bhagavan says, in verse 8 of Upadeshandya, after describing all the different practices of bhakti and saying each one is better than the previous one, better in the sense that it is more efficacious in purifying the mind. In verse 8, he says, rather than anyabhava, that means meditating on what is other, implying meditating on God as something other than ourselves, or meditating on anything other than ourselves. Rather than that, meditating on what is not other, ananyabhava. Ananya means what is not other. Bhava means, this context means meditation. So meditating on what is not other. What is not other than ourselves? Only ourselves. So, but the fact that he's here talking about meditation on God, that is, either we meditate on God as if God was something other than ourselves, or we understand that he is I and meditating upon him only as I, as nothing other than I. That's why he says, avanaham ananya bhava. That means ananya bhava, or meditation on what is not other, in which he is I. So when we understand that God is that which is shining in our heart as I, meditating on nothing other than I, that is what Bhagavan means there by ananya bhava. And he says, anatinam uttamam. This is the best among all. Why is it the best among all? Well, in what sense is it the best among all? Because it's the most effective means to purify the mind. It also happens to be the only means to eradicate ego and to get rid of all vasanas in one stroke, along with their root ego. But it's in this context, what he means by anatim and uttamam, because he's talking about the different practices for purifying the mind. This is the best among all, in that it's the most effective means to purify our mind. Because all Vishaya vasanas are our inclination to attend to anything other than ourselves. So when we attend to ourselves, we are not allowing ourselves to be swayed by those inclinations. So the vasanas are strengthened to the extent to which we allow ourselves to be swayed by them. They're weakened to the extent to which we avoid being swayed by them. Why is that? Because vasanas have no strength of their own. Vasanas may seem to have power over us, but they have power over us only because, where do they get that power from? It's only we who give the power to the vasanas. Because I like this, that liking for it seems to have power over me, but the power is coming only from me. That is, without me, there would be no liking at all. So how can the power have any power of its own? It's only got, the vasanas have only as much power as we give them. And we give them by allowing ourselves to be swayed by them. So if we don't allow ourselves to be swayed by a vasana, we are thereby depriving it of the power that we were formerly giving it, and thereby it becomes weakened. So when we attend to ourselves, we are not allowing ourselves to be swayed by any Vishaya vasana. So all Vishaya vasanas collectively are being weakened by clinging to self-attentiveness. And the contrary vasana, the opposite of Vishaya vasana, is Sat vasana. The inclination not to attend to any Vishaya, but to attend merely to being, to our own being, I am. That is Sat vasana. So by attending to ourselves, we are strengthening Sat vasana and weakening the Vishaya vasanas. Since the Vishaya vasanas are the impurities in the mind, the weaker they become, the more pure our mind is. So a purified mind means a mind in which the Vishaya vasanas are increasingly weakened by the love to turn within and hold on to I am.
Maybe the confusion, Michael, is that we say his vasanas, my vasanas, no? They are only Vishaya vasanas and Sat vasanas. If in your life appears one
yes,
person,
but whose vasanas are they? They're ego's vasanas. That's why
yes.
we say my vasanas.
Yes.
So you have your vasanas are your vasanas. My vasanas are my vasanas. The things that but interest you may not interest me, but things that interest me may not interest you. So we each have our own set of vasanas. But the vasanas are not ego. The vasanas belong to ego. It is the nature of ego to have vasanas. But the vasanas are something other than ego.
Yes.
That is, we identify ourselves with those vasanas. The vasanas of a Anandamaya kosha, the first of the five, the subtlest of the five koshas. We identify all the five koshas as ourselves. I am this body. I'm sitting here. I'm talking. I'm breathing. My heart is beating. I'm alive. I'm thinking. So we're identifying with each of these sheets. I'm judging. I'm discriminating. That's identifying with the intellect. I like this. I don't like that. That's identifying with the Anandamaya kosha. But ego is something separate from all of these. So all of these belong to ego, but ego is not any of these things. They belong to ego because ego takes them as I am mine.
Okay.
No, so this is a very important point. That is what Bhagavan has given us. There's a reason why devotees of Bhagavan used to refer to this as Bhagavan's Brahmastra. Initially, the reason why people started to refer to this as Bhagavan's Brahmastra is that whenever anyone asks Bhagavan a question, somehow or other he brings it back to pointing out to being self-attentive. So that is, whatever question you ask, Bhagavan somehow brings it back to who am I? So people started to refer to this as Bhagavan's Brahmastra. Whatever we ask Bhagavan, he brings out his Brahmastra, and we can't go any further. But it also has a very deep meaning, actually, when this referring to who am I as Bhagavan's Brahmastra. It is actually what Bhagavan has given us is a supremely powerful weapon. That is, holding on to self-attentiveness is the divine weapon, but will destroy ego and everything based on ego. So it will destroy the whole universe, all universes, all heavens and hells. Everything will be destroyed when ego is destroyed. So this is such a powerful weapon. We need to appreciate how powerful this weapon is. But in order to wield a powerful weapon, if you're very weak, if you've got a very powerful, strong sword, but you're too weak even to lift the sword, that's going to be of no use to you. So we could say, oh, Bhagavan has given us a very powerful weapon. Who am I? But I'm not able to use it, so it's no use to me. That is wrong. Because we think, why does it seem difficult to us to wield this weapon of this Brahmastra of who am I? In other words, why does it seem difficult to us to hold on to self-attentiveness? That's what this Brahmastra means. Being self-attentive, that is the weapon that Bhagavan has given us. That is what is meant by who am I? Just being self-attentive. So why does it seem difficult for us to hold on to self-attentiveness? Because of the strength of our Vishaya vasanas. We think, oh, my vasanas are too strong, so I cannot hold on to self-attentiveness. But there we go. That is a fundamental misunderstanding. But vasanas are not strong. But vasanas have only the strength that we give them. So if we understand, but the vasanas actually have no power over us, except the power that we give them. If a vasana seems to have hold on us and seems to have power over us, it has got power over us only because we have endowed it with that power. That is what of a vasana. The vasanas are our inclinations. That's our likes and dislikes in their very subtlest form. So why do we allow ourselves to be swayed by vasanas? Because we like to be swayed by them. Because what are these vasanas? They're our own likings. So we do have the power, if we want to wield this weapon. If we want to hold on to self-attentiveness, we can hold on to self-attentiveness. If we lose hold on self-attentiveness, that is because of a lack of will. So the key to success in this path is great love. We must have great love to try to hold on to self-attentiveness. That is why Bhagavan often used to say, Bhakti is the mother of jnana. That is, bhakti means love. That love to know and to be what we actually are, that alone will enable us to know and to be what we actually are. Knowing and being what we actually are is jnana. But love to know and to be what we actually are is bhakti. So bhakti, without bhakti, we can never attain jnana. Bhakti is the mother of jnana.
And this love only comes and grows and grows.
Yes.
How consequence to attend yourself. No?
Yes. The more we attend to ourselves, the more we are cultivating that love.
That's a good reminder to be aware that vasanas are powerful because we give them power.
Yes, they have no power of their own.
Mm-hmm.
What is the source of all power? The source of all power is the source of everything. You know, but our own satchit, that is the source of all power. We as ego have risen from satchit and taking ourselves to be a body. We borrow from satchit our existence and awareness. So whatever power we as ego seem to have is power that we have borrowed from satchit. And whatever power we see in other things, those other things exist only in our view. So whatever power other things seem to have is power that we have given them by seeing them. If we don't see them, they've got no power at all. So how to deprive everything else of the power? This world seems to be so attractive. It's got so much power over us. It's got so much ability to attract us and delude us, and it has that power because we've given it that power. We give it that power by attending to it. The more we attend to it, the more attractive this world seems to be. But that attraction is nothing. It's nothing but a reflection of ourselves. So if we are wise, we will stop attending to the world. We will attend only to ourselves. The more we attend to ourselves, the more the world will become insignificant and ourself will loom large. The more we attend to the world, the more the world will loom large and I am will become insignificant. Oh, I'm just a little helpless person in this world. What can I do? The world is so powerful and I've got even myself, I'm so imperfect. I've got so many strong vasanas. I'm helpless. What can I do, Bhagavan? Bhagavan, you have to save me. Bhagavan said, turn within, hold on to yourself. That alone will save you. Bhagavan does save us, but he saves us by turning our attention back within, back to the source of all power, of all light, of all clarity, of all wisdom, of all love. We are that. We ourselves are that. There's nothing other than ourselves. So we cannot blame anything else. If we feel but we're unable to do this, it's because we don't want to do it. We don't yet have sufficient love to do it. So we have to convince ourselves, but we can be self-attentive if we want to be. It's entirely up to us. If we are not self-attentive, it is simply because we don't want to be.
It's like an addiction in a sense, yeah?
Yes,
like
yes.
We are addicted to something and I want to continue, even though I'm aware that
this is exactly how addictions work.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
The more you invest attention in something, the more you become addicted to that. Mm-hmm. So if you think you get happiness from drinking alcohol or taking drugs or something, you go back to that again and again, and the more you go back to it, the stronger it becomes. The stronger that addiction becomes. But addiction is strong because you've invested your attention in it, mm-hmm. because you're seeking happiness in that glass of wine or in that shot of cocaine or that snort of cocaine or shot of heroin or whatever it is. You're seeking happiness in that. And you become a slave to your own desire for that. But your desires have no power except the power you give them by desiring that. So all the power is in our hands. It's up to us. This is why Bhagavan always insisted we have freedom. We are just misusing our freedom by allowing our attention to go outwards. So we are always free to turn our attention back within. If we want to be, if we want to, but we have to, that love to turn within has to be there. Oh, Bhagavan, I don't have enough love to turn within. Try to turn within. The more you try, the more that love will grow.
When Bhagavan says that we are free to decide to go inside or to attain a desire, is relative, no? Because
we are perfectly free. Even now, if you want to go inside, you can go inside now.
But if I want more, a desire, even now, for example, no, my love for the chocolate is bigger than my love for me. In this moment, I'm not free.
But why do you have love for chocolate? Whose love is it? It's your love. You can't blame the chocolate. You are the one who that is that liking for chocolate. You have that liking for chocolate because you allow your mind to go in that direction.
And
that liking has no power over you except for the power that you give it.
Yes, but if I can't avoid this inclination, because
this is bigger, what Bhagavan says, you can.
Don't think that you can't, no?
Don't think. That's why Bhagavan often said, the thought but it's not possible. The thought that you can't is a great obstacle. We shouldn't give room to this. All the power is in our hands. Whatever power we see in our vasanas or we see in the outside world, the power of attraction of the world, that power is power we've given it because we allow ourselves to be attracted to it, because we allow ourselves to be swayed by the vasanas. Don't allow yourself to be swayed by. So we need to clearly understand all the power is in our hands. We have to use that power wisely. We use the power wisely by holding on to I am. If instead of holding on to I am, we allow our attention to go outwards, we're allowing our power to go outwards, and we're investing our power in things other than ourselves, in our vasanas and in the world that is a projection of our vasanas.
Okay. Well, Michael, I must to go to other.
Yes. Well, I think we've covered the subject very thoroughly today.
You covered not only verse 1, but Bhagavan's teachings in.
Well, this verse 1 is the essence of Bhagavan's teachings. So I mean, this touches upon every aspect of Bhagavan's teachings. I mean, this is the hub. The wheel, all the spokes of Bhagavan's teaching, all are pointing up this hub. What is it that Bhagavan asks us to do? Just be sumeru. What is sumeru? That means being in the heart as it is. And how to be in the heart as it is? Only by attending to ourselves, because knowing and being are one and the same. We can be what we actually are only by knowing what we actually are. We can know what we actually are only by being what we actually are, because Sat is Chit and Chit is Sat. Uḻḷadu is uḷḷavu, uṇarvu is uḷḷadu. And we are that.
The last point, sorry, I only want to.
Yeah, no, certainly.
The last point of when Bhagavan says in Anjar in 16 paragraph, for example, the sinner, that thing that is the big sinner, the greater sinner, no? How can I save myself, no? In this point that if you believe that it is true, it will be true for you. And if you renounce to accept that this your desire, your inclination is bigger, if you don't accept that and you go inside, you break the Maya. No?
Yes, that is a very, very good example you've chosen there, because there Bhagavan says, this in the 10th paragraph of Nana, Oruvan evlo parpiayirandalam. However great a sinner one may be.
It's 10, sorry.
Nan papiayikarene. Oh, I'm a terrible sinner. I'm a sinner. I'm indeed a sinner. Epidi kadayera pokirain. How can I be saved? How can I reach the other shore? That is, how can I attain salvation? Endru engi aladu kondiramo. Without pining and weeping in this way, saying, I'm a great sinner, how can I be saved? Tan papi ennum ennateum arave oritu. Completely giving up the thought that one is a sinner. Sarupa dhyanatil ukum uλλļabanaha irandal. If one remains as one who is firmly, who has who is steadfast in self-attentiveness, avan nichayamai urupaduvan. He will certainly be saved. So this is a very good illustration of what we were just saying. That is, if we give room to the thought, I am a sinner, that thought, I am a sinner, is real to the extent, but we pay attention to it. And that's why Bhagavan says, completely giving up the thought that one is a sinner. We shouldn't think that we are a sinner. Likewise, we shouldn't think, oh, I'm so weak. How can I practice this self-attentiveness? We should give up completely the thought that we are a sinner, or that we are weak, or that we are incapable. We should cling firmly to self-attentiveness. We should be steadfast in holding on to self-attentiveness, and we will certainly be saved. So, but the implication here, the power is in our hands. However bad we may be, why a sinner means someone with very bad vasanas. So however bad our vasanas may be, however strong our vasanas may be, let us not yield to them. The vasanas have no power except the power we give them. So let us not give power to them. Let us not think, I am a sinner, I am weak, I am incapable. Let us give up all such thoughts and hold on to self-attentiveness. That's all that is required. So yes, that's a very good illustration you picked up on there. I mean, you referred to there. That's a very good place to end. So what Bhagavan implies there is the power is in our hands. We can be self-attentive if we want to be self-attentive. No power on earth, or in heaven or in earth, or in hell, or any power anywhere can stop us being self-attentive if we want to be. All the power in heaven and hell and earth and wherever you may look, all that power, it has the power, but we give it. The world looks very attractive because we give it that power. Hell looks very terrible because we give it that. Even hell will become heaven if you're free of likes and dislikes. So it's we who heaven and hell are created by us. This in this very life, we can make this life a hell for ourselves. We can make it a heaven for ourselves. It's all up to us because the power is in all our hands. How to make it a heaven for us? By surrendering ourselves completely, by not attaching any importance to it. So long as I want to enjoy this world will make us suffer. When we give up the desire to enjoy the world will then become, only then will the world become heaven for us, because it won't affect us. So everything depends on ourselves. We are Tattvamasi, you are that, you are Brahman itself. So why, if you're thinking, oh, I'm so weak, I can't do this, you're denying what you actually are. You yourself are the supreme power. Whatever power is there, it is only a reflection of the power that we actually are. So we should have great, this is what is called Shraddha. Shraddha is often translated as faith, but it's much more than just faith. It's not just a blind belief. It's a strong conviction in the words of Guru. So when you understand the truth of the words of Guru, when Bhagavan says, don't even give room to the thought that you're a sinner. Don't even give room to the thought of your incapability. Just cling to self-attentiveness. What does he imply by that? You have the power. You can cling to self-attentiveness if you want to. So stop thinking yourself to be weak. The thought that you are weak, the thought that you are a sinner, it's itself a great obstacle. Give up that thought. Trust in your own power by clinging to self-attentiveness. That is true Shraddha.